We've had a bit of rain, but it's still very dry out there.
It's deceptively dry, Rob. Situation is that we've had 9 to 10, 11 millimetres of rain in patches around the greater Canterbury area. Central Otago, Southland have been really nice and fine the last fortnight. North Island, extremely dry on the east coast and very wet on the west coast of both islands. So this time of the year we've got to start to look at what we're doing for next year. And one of the main elements we need to have into our horticultural crops especially is water. So the ground conditions are extremely dry. This sort of drizzly stuff we're getting, it's very wet, but actually it doesn't actually do anything.
It's not going in, is it?
No. I mean, if you take the disastrous fires we had last week in Canterbury, they had about 11 millimetres of rain on the fire site. And people would say, well, that's fantastic, let's put that out. No, it's probably settled the ash, but it certainly hasn't done anything for the fire itself. It's very hot and very dry up there. And that's the conditions out in the country. I was out in the country on Saturday this weekend, and it's extremely dry, and it's really got dry in the last sort of 10 days or so. So we've got to start to keep our bushes and our trees and our shrubs and our vines going. We've got to actually really wet that first 300-400 millimetres, and it takes quite a lot of time, especially if they are dehydrated. To rehydrate them takes a heck of a lot of time, and sometimes it doesn't actually work. You'll get down 2 or 3 centimetres, and that's as far as it'll go. Now what we've got to deal with is getting those root hairs that are around those main roots damp and getting the moisture and nutrients into them. So it's very, very important this next month or so, and it's going to continue to be quite dry in the dry areas. Good to see some nice rain in the North Canterbury area, and I hope that continues to help those guys. But Hawke's Bay is extremely dry. Their fruit is smaller in size because of the dryness. Great condition, no disease, and very little pest at this stage. So the harvest will be good, as it has been across the country. A smaller harvest, running behind time, and also still producing quality fruit, but not a heck of a lot of it. So it's really been a funny season. So right at the moment, here we are, and heading towards March, late February, early March, and we're as dry as a chip in some areas and wet as anything in others. So that's very important that rehydration takes place now, and then we can start to introduce our fertilisers for the autumn applications that will benefit our spring growth. So to get those nutrients into the plant and up into the plant by September, October, when the soil temperatures start to move up again after winter, and also the growing conditions start to move, those little root hairs start to do their business, we have to have that fertiliser up into those plants for them to get the benefit of it.
So when does that go on?
That'll go on in the autumn, in the next 2 to 3 weeks, or say the next month to 6 weeks, depending on the crop. So it's pretty vitally important that those applications are completed by end of March, if with the way the season's been and the way it's been changed, maybe first 2 weeks of April. But it needs to go in there. People have got this misconception that over winter we get 3 or 4 inches of rain, and it actually dilutes all that fertiliser and it doesn't get up to the plants. It's quite the contrary. It actually gets in around those root hairs and they take it up into the plants before it has any chance of being flushed out. So that's the reason why, and what we call autumn applications are being our main regime for our fertiliser applications.
Those with fertigation will be laughing then.
Absolutely they are. I mean, it's a good method to get a quick fix. One they're obviously irrigating, but at the same time they can put some minerality into there, and they'll get a quick plant reaction. But we need to build the base first, Rob. It's very important those base fertilisers are doing their work, and we can come along then with the specific micronutrients, either early spring or during the growing season again, such as boron and zinc are very important at the beginning of a season, and then later on we've got calciums and potassiums and magnesiums, which are important going through the growing season. But if it isn't going well down below under that ground, you're wasting your blooming time.
Weed control?
Yeah. This time of the year when harvest is on and the growers are very busy harvesting their various crops, the properties get a little bit hairy with weeds, and there's 1 or 2 quite nasty weeds out there. The old Californian thistle is always a good one. Mallow, wireweed, and a little bit of nettle and things like that appear of their ugly heads at this stage of the year. Summer grasses. To be honest, they're quite dry. They're not going to take up a lot of herbicide. Better to wait probably another month, 6 weeks, even 2 months in some cases, and apply those herbicides. And when the frost is starting, and that helps to draw the actual chemical down to the plant, because the plant's saying, "Hey, I want to survive. I don't want to die," so it sucks on that application, takes it down into their root system, and unfortunately, the end result is dead weeds. So, too early to do too much about tidying up. I mean, some guys do some mowing. That's another thing you've got to be very careful with at this time of the year. Mowing and stones cause fires.
Yeah.
And I would rather see a rough-looking orchard or a bit untidy-looking vineyard or whatever than something that's going to turn out to be quite tragic. So those applications of the herbicides, I'm really talking May, Rob, to be honest, to get the best benefit out of them.
Markets, what are they doing?
They've been pretty good in some areas and not so good in others. So it's a real political answer, isn't it? But soft fruits such as raspberries, strawberries, and boysenberries, they were strong demand because they were light on production, and they were a little late with some of those real peak periods of Christmas, New Year, and other holiday periods that people love having those on their pavlovas or whatever it may be. But they've been strong of late, and the prices have been pretty blooming good. But the season hasn't been that great in terms of being that fruitful, if I may use that word, and in terms of production. The production's down a bit. Quality's still fine. So prices have held up not too badly. But then when you go across to other crops that are more influenced by exportation, likes of the apples and what have you, the cracks and the gaps that we've got in Europe market, and I mean it's in bloody turmoil at the moment, jolly turmoil at the moment, because of the what's going to happen next in Europe, and they're actually chilling the fruit longer now, so their storage capability in Europe and our key markets is far greater than it was in the past. So we're actually feeding our fruit into cracks rather than big marketing gaps. So we've had to, and I think the government and other agencies have done a really good job in spreading our produce and exports around various countries. So we're going not too badly, but we're so reliant as a country on exports. 95% of what we grow, we actually have to export, no matter what the crop is, in general terms.
Because we can't consume it.
4.5 million people can't consume what we produce, and we're jolly good producers. So exporting is hugely important to us. Our friends in Australia aren't too bad with us. They don't like it very much because they're running a very strong campaign under the present regime over there for, eat and consume Australia, and good on them. I mean, we would do exactly the same, but at the end of the day, they can't produce some of the things that we can produce well for them. So we've got to keep continually working away on that one and keep the CER relationship going. But when it comes to Europe, I think there's going to be greater opportunities in the future. I think the recent trip that our Prime Minister did in the European countries and UK, Brexit could actually end up being something quite extraordinary for us. We're 40 years ago, 30 years ago, they closed the door on us because they got married to their local European countries. Now they're out rowing in their own boat. And
the divorce is going through.
They absolutely, they will require some of I hope our food in the future.
America, of course, is a different story, because he will say, Donald Trump will say, if it's not produced here, we don't eat it.
Yeah, that's right, and that'll last for a while, and then he'll realise that some of the food that they can produce over there in abundance, they've got a lot of other food that they really do require to get a decent diet, and that's a struggle for an American anyway. That they will still require. America's become pretty important to us, especially in the wine industry. It's huge. And they are drinking sophisticated wines in America now, more so than they did 10 years ago. And fortunately, for a little country, we can produce those for them. So there's some really good opportunities there too.
Jim, thank you very much indeed. In just a moment or two, we're going to be taking another look at the South Island field days at Kerwee.